Beijing Zoo subway station incident. On July 5, 2011, a crowded escalator at the Beijing Zoo subway station turned into a scene of chaos during morning rush hour. The station was packed with commuters, most of them office workers and students heading to their daily routines. Line 4 was one of the busiest in the city's extensive metro network, carrying thousands of passengers every hour. Among them was a boy traveling with his father and sister. At approximately 9:30 a.m., the ascending escalator made a sudden grinding noise. Witnesses described it as a metallic screech followed by what sounded like machinery braking. Without warning, the escalator reversed direction, accelerating downward against its normal flow. People lost their balance immediately. The crowded stairway transformed into a human avalanche. The force threw passengers backward. Those at the top tumbled down, colliding with others below them. Screams filled the station as approximately 30 people fell and piled on top of each other at the bottom. The boy was caught in the worst position, near the bottom of the pile. The weight of multiple adults crushed down on his small frame. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but the scene was chaotic. The boy had suffered severe internal injuries and wasn't breathing when paramedics reached him. Despite resuscitation attempts, he was pronounced dead at the hospital. His father and sister survived with injuries. Later investigation revealed a mechanical failure in the escalator's braking system. The sudden reversal had been caused by a critical malfunction in the drive chain, with the weight of passengers accelerating the deadly descent. Josh Martin escalator fall incident. On May 28, 2018, what began as an ordinary evening at the Providence Place Mall in Rhode Island ended in tragedy. Josh Martin, a 45-year-old guitarist known for his work with the controversial band and metal group Failure Clinic, had spent the day shopping. The mall was moderately busy with the usual mix of families, teenagers, and adults moving between stores across its 4 levels. Around 10:45 p.m., Martin approached the escalator connecting the upper levels. Security footage later showed him in high spirits, laughing with friends. Witnesses reported that Martin began clowning around near the escalator, a behavior not uncommon for the musician known for his outrageous stage presence. He climbed onto the moving handrail of the ascending escalator and attempted to slide down while facing the opposite direction. Within seconds, Martin lost his balance. The slick metal rail provided no grip as he tried to steady himself. He toppled backward over the side, falling approximately 34 feet to the hard tile floor below. The impact was devastating. His head struck the ground with tremendous force, causing immediate and fatal trauma to his skull and brain. Nearby shoppers rushed to help, but Martin lay motionless in an expanding pool of blood. Mall security reached him within minutes and attempted first aid while calling emergency services. Paramedics arrived quickly, but found Martin unresponsive with no pulse. Despite their efforts to resuscitate him, the injuries were too severe. Josh Martin was pronounced dead at the scene, his skull fractured beyond recovery from an impulsive moment that turned fatal in seconds. Stony Point Fashion Park maintenance incident. On March 18, 2019, shoppers at Richmond's upscale Stony Point Fashion Park went about their day unaware of the tragedy unfolding behind the scenes. Inside the Dillard's department store, a maintenance technician was performing routine work on one of the store's escalators. The store was open, with customers browsing merchandise just feet away from where the technician accessed the maintenance hatch. At approximately 9:30 a.m., the technician began working on the escalator's internal mechanism. These machines contain a complex network of chains, gears, and moving parts hidden beneath the visible steps. The maintenance hatch provided only limited access to these components, forcing workers to position themselves awkwardly within the cramped mechanical space. Standard safety protocols required the power to be completely disconnected during such work. For reasons investigators later struggled to determine, the technician somehow fell into the internal machinery. The narrow service area, barely 3 feet wide, offered no room to maneuver if something went wrong. His body became entangled in the drive chains and comb plates that normally guide the steps along their track. The mechanical force crushed his torso and limbs, causing severe internal injuries. A store employee heard unusual sounds coming from the escalator and called for help. When other maintenance staff arrived, they found the technician trapped within the mechanism, unresponsive and showing no signs of life. Emergency responders arrived minutes later, but could only confirm what was already apparent. The technician had died instantly, his body so severely damaged by the machinery that extraction took several hours. Store officials declined to immediately release his name while authorities notified his family. Bronx subway escalator strangulation incident. On October 17, 2015, Carlos Alvarez, a 48-year-old maintenance worker, entered the Intervale Avenue subway station in the Bronx after finishing his late shift. The station was nearly empty at 4 a.m., with only a handful of early morning commuters present. Surveillance footage showed Alvarez walking normally toward the escalator that would take him to the platform level. As he stepped onto the ascending escalator, Alvarez appeared to lose his balance. Whether from fatigue or a misstep, he suddenly pitched forward, falling face first onto the moving stairs. In that critical moment, the collar of his work shirt caught in the teeth of the escalator steps where they disappeared into the comb plate at the top landing. The machinery continued its relentless movement, dragging both shirt and man along with it. The fabric tightened around Alvarez's neck as the escalator pulled more of his clothing into its mechanism. He struggled desperately, unable to reach the emergency stop button, only feet away. The shirt acted like a ligature, constricting his airway while the escalator's steel steps scraped against his face and head. A passing commuter discovered him minutes later, face down at the top of the escalator, motionless. Blood pooled around his head, which had sustained massive trauma from impact with the metal cone plate. His shirt remained tightly wrapped around his neck, still partially caught in the machine. The commuter hit the emergency stop button and called for help. When paramedics arrived, they cut away the clothing but found no pulse. Carlos Alvarez had died from a combination of strangulation and blunt force trauma to the head, killed by his own clothing and the unyielding machine. Tokyo, supermarket handrail incident. On February 8, 2019, an elderly woman in her 80s entered the OK Store supermarket in the Higashi Fushimi district of Nishi, Tokyo. It was late afternoon, around 4:30 p.m., and the store was moderately busy with after-work shoppers. Security cameras captured her moving carefully through the aisles, leaning on her aluminum walker for support. She had completed her shopping and approached the escalator to return to the ground floor. At the top of the escalator, she paused briefly before maneuvering her walker onto the moving steps. Store policy recommended that elderly customers use the elevator, but many preferred the more convenient escalator. As she descended, something went wrong. Approximately halfway down, she lost her balance. The walker shifted position, causing her to stumble forward. She fell against the moving handrail, unable to regain her footing. As she neared the bottom landing, her body position became critical. The escalator's design created a narrowing gap where the handrail disappeared into the floor mechanism. The woman's neck slid into this gap as she continued her involuntary descent. The moving rubber handrail dragged her head toward the fixed metal housing where it entered the floor. The pressure against her neck increased instantly, compressing her airway and vital blood vessels. A store employee heard the abandoned walker clattering at the bottom of the escalator and rushed to investigate. They found the woman unconscious, her neck firmly trapped between the still moving handrail and the fixed housing. Despite hitting the emergency stop button immediately, the damage was done. Paramedics arrived within minutes but found no pulse. The compression had caused fatal damage to her trachea and carotid arteries, stopping blood flow to her brain. Santa Ana Central Courthouse maintenance incident. On February 28, 2005, Mark Pelletier, a 37-year-old repair technician with over a decade of experience, arrived at the Santa Ana Central Courthouse for routine escalator maintenance. The courthouse was quiet that Monday morning with only security staff and early arrivals present in the building. Pelletier had performed similar maintenance hundreds of times before at facilities throughout Orange County, California. At approximately 8:15 a.m., Pelletier accessed the mechanical compartment beneath the downward-moving escalator. The service area was extremely confined, measuring just 3 by 5 feet, with barely enough room for a person to maneuver among the machinery. Standard safety protocol required the power to be locked out during maintenance, with the key kept on the technician's person. For unknown reasons, this critical step was either skipped or failed. While Pelletier worked in the cramped space, the escalator's power suddenly activated. The massive steel mechanism began moving at full speed, with no warning. In the confined area, there was nowhere to escape. Pelletier was instantly caught between a structural support beam and the moving metal components of the drive system. The force was immense, crushing his chest and abdomen against the fixed beam. Court staff heard his screams and rushed to help, immediately hitting the emergency stop. When first responders arrived minutes later, they found Pelletier still trapped within the machinery, unresponsive. The pressure had caused massive internal injuries, rupturing major organs and crushing his ribcage. Paramedics confirmed he had no pulse. It took emergency workers over an hour to extract his body from the machinery. The medical examiner later determined that death had been nearly instantaneous from massive internal trauma and blood loss. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.